friends, and welcome to the video. So when I was a kid, I was taught that God is everywhere. And more than that, God was inside my heart. And I should pray to God by talking in my head. And I think people kind of look down on this. But in Advaita Vedanta, we do see that you are consciousness itself, and your thoughts, your mind arises to you. So the idea that maybe God knows all your thoughts isn't so far out. Well, I think the whole of this is far out, but anyway. In this video, I wanted to make more connections with the kind of Christianity I was brought up with, and Advaita Vedanta. So I was brought up as a Catholic. Last time we saw, I did a video last weekend about Saint Thomas Aquinas, and he's one of the most important theologians, and possibly the most important. The other one that might be the most important theologian in the Catholic Church is Saint Augustine, who I'm going to talk about today. So it's not like I'm making this up myself. This is authority, comes from basically the theologians that built the structure of Catholicism today. Now, we saw in the last video that Saint Thomas Aquinas said that God is not a being among beings, not like a demigod in the world or in the universe up in the sky, but is being itself, is existence itself. And not only that, God is pure being, pure knowing, and pure love. And this is echoed in Advaita Vedanta, which is what I'm interested in, when we say that Brahman is Sat Chit Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss, or if you prefer, being, knowing, and love. In this video, I wanted to draw a parallel with how we find God. How do we find the self in Advaita Vedanta, they would say? How we discern from what is not the self, an Atman, and find the true self. And Augustine's idea that to find God, we turn inward, and that God is inner than our innermost self, is closer than ourselves, our very selves. And this is kind of like in Advaita Vedanta might be that is the idea that the body and the mind-body complex is an object to awareness. It's not what you really are. So you are closer than what you consider yourself to be, even the sense of I am. Now, in the last week's video, we saw that so God is existence itself. So is God an apple? Is God all the apples? Is God, in fact, the universe in total? And this might be a generous materialist's interpretation of God, an open-minded materialist. In fact, when somebody asked Einstein, did he believe in God? He said, I believe in Spinoza's God. And Spinoza's God was the whole universe, the laws of the universe, energy, matter, space-time. It's basically pantheism. Now, in Christianity and Advaita Vedanta, they see God as being, it would be better to describe it as panentheistic. So God is, the universe is in God, but God is more than the universe. So we can see this directly in our self-inquiry, how we find that we can never objectify the self. As soon as we turn the self, Atman, into an object, it becomes part of the world. It's a thought in the world. It's no longer the ultimate subject. In the same way, in Christianity, in a more mature Christianity, more sophisticated Christianity. We don't see God as being a man in the sky. There is the apophatic tradition which says that God cannot be described, and cannot be objectified, escapes language, escapes thought. And this would be the same. The reason why you cannot know the subject is because every time you make a thought about the subject, it is objectified. It becomes part of the world, part of the object. Now, so how do we find God? How do we approach God? In Advaita Vedanta, they have the various different ways of finding the self. Of course, you can never find the self, but the best you can do is find out what you are not. But one is the discernment between the seer and the seen, Drigdrisha Viveka. This is where you say, well, I think I'm the body, but in fact, no, I observe the body. So the body is the object. So I am the subject and the body is the object. It can't be me. And so the next step inwards is, well, I'm my thoughts then. I'm my emotions. I'm this feeling of being me. And that is also seen as being an object. Even the feeling of being me, the I thought, or this felt sense of being me, this is considered reflected consciousness. It's reflected in the mind. It's your true consciousness reflected in each of the minds. So it's like the sun is shining down on many pots of water. These many pots are the different minds. And each mind limits the reflection of the sun and feels that it is conscious. But in fact, that is an object. So even that is not what you really are. So you are that which observes all that, which can never be objectified, the eternal subject. Now, of course, you go deep in that and you go beyond the idea of the witness. You dissolve the witness to non-duality, because that is basically duality. You see that the world cannot exist without you. And if something, an apple, you see an apple, if the apple disappears, you're still there. But if you disappear, the apple's not there anymore either. So it is dependent on you. So it is this is how we get to non-duality. This is how we make the step from the seer and the seen to non-duality, because it is dependent on you. In Christianity, they have the idea as well that the world is created and sustained by God. In a way of describing it could be a singer singing a song. So while the singer is singing the song exists. If the singer stops, the song stops, but the singer is still there. The song is dependent on the singer. In Advaita Vedanta, they have the analogy of the snake and the rope. So you walk out in the rain and you see a rope on the ground and you mistake it for a snake. Now, the snake is not completely unreal. You see it there. It's what is called mithya. It's dependently real. So its existence depends on the rope. If there wasn't a rope there would be no snake. You wouldn't see a snake. But because of Maya, because of this error, you mistake it for a snake. But it depends on the rope. There's another analogy where a pot has hot water, a pot with hot water. The water is not intrinsically hot. It takes its heat. The heat is borrowed from the pot. And the pot is also not intrinsically hot. It borrows its heat from the fire, but the fire is intrinsically hot. And that's what Brahman is. That's what you are, existence, consciousness. Everything is dependent on you, dependent on your consciousness, on your existence. It's the same thing. There's consciousness and existence. They're not two things. This here exists and this here is conscious. Now, there is another way. So we see these parallels with Christianity and Advaita Vedanta. There is another way that Advaita Vedanta inquires into the self, is through a process called the discernment of the changing and unchanging. So anything that changes cannot be you, because you're the thing that observes change. You're the thing that provides continuity between the change. If there was no you there, you wouldn't know there was change. It would seem like there was that, and then there was that, and you wouldn't notice any change. So you are the observer of the change. You can't change, because if it was you changing, you wouldn't notice it. It needs to be something that you observe for it to be seen as change. So you can observe in your direct experience, things that are changing cannot be you. You are immutable. You are that which does not change. Brahman is unchanging, eternal, and all that. Now, this is very similar to what St. Augustine said. He said that to find God, we turn inwards. We turn inwards, and whenever we find anything, whenever we find the self mutable, changing, we transcend it. So we go beyond that. We go beyond what is changing, and eventually we find the ground. Now, this would be the soul, and we go inwards and then go upwards to God. This is, of course, within dualism. Augustine was not saying that there is an identity between the soul and God. But if we look at other Christian mystics, for example, Meister Eckhart, he did say that the ground of my soul and the ground of God is the same ground. When we talk in Advaita Vedanta, Tattvamasi, you are that. It is really, in classical Advaita Vedanta, it's not really saying you are Brahman. It's saying that the jiva is Ishvara, and this doesn't fit. Is clearly you're not God. You can't make it rain. I can't make it rain. God is all powerful. I am pretty much powerless. And God has all these wonderful attributes, and I don't have. I don't have them. So it's not correct. And so we take the implied meaning. And so you take away all the adjuncts, all the things that are added, like powerful, powerless, and you find what's beneath them, and that's what it is the ground. It's the identity in Advaita Vedanta is that. It's the consciousness, the being in which everything arises. If God appeared in front of you, he would be within your consciousness. If God, the man, this demigod that people often think, it would be within your consciousness. Now, the ground is beyond all of that. And this is what Meister Eckhart called the ground. He said there was a prayer, God, save me from God. So take me deeper into this. So how do we find God? Where is God? Is God in an apple? Is God in the universe itself? We turn inwards. We turn inwards deeper than our own thoughts, deeper than our mind, our cognitive abilities, even our sense of being me. And that thing which provides existence to everything, that if it wasn't there, nothing would exist. That is the ground. And that is God. Thank you very much for watching.